let us join in the spirit of meditation, reflection, or prayer as we deepen into our service and share our opening words for this morning. This reading comes from the Karaniya Metta Sutta and is entitled Discourse on Loving Friendliness. The Blessed One then spoke as follows. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peace and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none. The great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life, her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Wonderful. Well, we are very lucky today to have our speaker, Alan Blaich, here presenting. He will be reflecting on the Brahmaviharas, often translated as the divine abodes or the four immeasurables, these being loving kindness or friendliness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Can these still offer us a useful framework for surviving in our modern world? Alan Blaich's original encounter with the overwhelming sense of wonder began on the prairies west of Mandan. After a 50-year voyage of discovery, he has once more returned to his natal area. During that voyage, his quest for meaningful spirituality propelled him to help found Lutherans Concerned, the first LGBTQ group to seek dialogue with the Lutheran tradition. Following a number of other spiritual adventures, he began his study and understanding of Buddhism, at Common Ground Meditation Center in Minneapolis, under the tutelage of Mark Nunberg. A lay practitioner of Buddhism, Alan defines himself as an eclectic Buddhist, absorbing the wisdom that is found in all the schools of Buddhism, both secular and religious. With a sense of giving back to the spiritual tradition that has nourished him, he seeks to support and encourage LGBTQ Buddhist groups throughout the country, and is co-president and a frequent presenter for Dharma Buddies in Seattle, and also Gay Buddhist Fellowship in San Francisco, thanks to COVID and Zoom access. Finally, he really likes laughter and practices it when he can. Present to you, Alan Blaich.
This has been an experience, and just getting to know the people who are involved here has been wonderful in my life. It's good to be back. And, having just grown up across the river, I had heard about the Unitarians, and I said, this is quite different. It took me like 50 years to find out, yeah, they're pretty good people. Coming back, as you may have heard, I have just returned here, been here for about 6-7 months, and I have been finding that North Dakota is a pretty good place to practice Buddhism. There's something in Buddhism called the three poisons, and those are attachment, aversion, and delusion. And North Dakota provides me all kinds of examples. First of all, I've found out that attachment means that you have about as many layers of clothing as you can on you, and they're all pretty tight. Aversion, of course, is stepping out of the door anytime. And finally, delusion. Whenever anybody turns to you and says, "I hear it's going to be nice next week." So this is a good place for growing Dharma. As was mentioned, I grew up across the river. My home over there was a great home. It had heat. It had 4 walls and windows, so it could protect me from the cold, and it had a roof that protected me from the rain. It was shelter. And then one Christmas early on, my sister got a toy house. And that was fascinating because this toy house had a second floor on it. And it was one of those where you could take the little component parts. So you could put the toilet in the living room, and you could put the bed in the kitchen, and it was very handy. And that was the first time that I realized, oh, houses can be something different. So then began a process, and I discovered a while ago that while counting them up, I have had approximately 16 or 17 different living arrangements in my life. And each one was different. Some of them had great architectural features, some of them had space, some of them were cold, some of them were hot, some of them had too many roommates, some of them had too few. But in each and every one of them, I discovered that there was always something uncomfortable, something that wasn't quite home. And so the journey began. This particular thing is simply a metaphor for the idea that in our lives, we try to find a place of comfort and rest. And this is where the Buddha comes in. He was thought of not necessarily as a god, but as a physician who looked out and saw people suffering and hurting and said, what can I do for them that will ease their hurt and their suffering and bring them to a place where both mind and heart can be at rest, a home, finally. In this process, the Buddha came to awareness that there were perhaps 4 things that the person could do. And those 4 things are what are now known as the Brahmaviharas. They're also known by many other names: the divine abodes, the immeasurables, the sublime attitudes. But the one thing that gets in the way is that they're all thought of as superlatives. And it doesn't really help a lot for people who are hurting to hear how things might be or what is out there. So we bring them back down to the factor that these items are actually grounded. And they're grounded not outside of us, but are only returning to our original selves. You've heard them mentioned already. Loving kindness, a soft affection and care for others and yourself. A wish that living beings may have happiness and its causes. Compassion, like an open heart that cares for everyone, a wish that living beings may be free from suffering and its causes. Joy with others, the ability to be happy when you see others happy, a wish that living beings may remain happy and their happiness may increase further. Equanimity, the balanced state of mind. It is the middle way state of mind that is neither clinging nor pushing away. A wish that beings may be free from attachment to some and aversion to others. The simplicity of these should resonate with all of us because they are our natural being, what within Buddhism they call the Buddha nature, that innate sense that these are the right things to go with. And so, rather than expounding on the meanings of each one, just think, just feel, just the very simplest word, just when you are sitting there, just take time to think loving kindness, compassion, joy with others, equanimity. These are innate in all of us. There's nothing strange about it. I kind of look upon them as the same way as when, and here in North Dakota, there are gorgeous ones, when I go out and watch a sunset. There is no reason for words. There is no reason to describe it. There is only the reason to feel that I have seen something, felt something, and I don't have to go any further than that. When we get down to this basic, even though we have poetry and we have commentary, thousands of words have been written about this, we realize that there is a next step, and that is simply practice. And this is where I think we kind of get hung up on. It will, like in my case, meditation can wait until tomorrow morning. It doesn't have to be now. And the factor that these attitudes can wait till tomorrow, even though they can only take a second at a time, is one of our big problems. So today it's not expounding on what they are, but just to encourage you in the practice of them. One of the aspects of these also is the factor that there is something that comes to mind, and it brings Buddhism up to the modern age. Neuroscience happens to say that there is a negativity bias built into our brains. And that says that because of all the times that we had to run from whatever enemy and such we had to face, well, we had to get away from there very fast. So we're very cautious human beings. And as a consequence, as they say, if you have a negative experience, it's been shown that you need at least 5 positive experiences to counteract that negativity. So this is where our contemplation of the Brahmaviharas comes in. This is a chance to do 5 experiences that will help to counteract that negativity, because we're so programmed. Over the last 2 years, we've certainly seen an emphasis on negativity and how it works. And so right now we have a lot of catching up to do. The other factor that I wish to bring up is that, strangely enough, the Buddha had said that there's some rewards for doing this. And they go as follows. 1, you sleep well. 1, you get up well. Another, you don't have nightmares. You become affectionate to human beings. You become affectionate to non-human beings. The deities protect you. Neither fire nor poison nor weapon affect one. One's mind becomes calm immediately. One's complexion brightens, no more makeup. One dies without confusion. And finally, beyond that, if one does not comprehend the highest, one goes to the world of the Brahmas. Now, this is rather strange for the Buddha to make this a presentation, practically, that you would see on TV as an advertisement for our product. But if you dig down there in it, you say to yourself, you know, if I do this, something different does happen. Something changes in my life. With that in mind, I'd like to just give a few meditations that for your thought, for your practice, might enable you. They're very simple, nothing to them, but this is shared with you. First, we almost missed out. One of the factors and stories of the Buddha was that after he was enlightened, he doubted himself. Can you imagine a religious person, a spiritual leader, doubting himself? He's supposed to have all of the knowledge and strength, but he doubted himself. He said, I don't know if I can teach anything to people because I don't think they'll get it. We're just lucky that he was able to overcome himself, which kind of shows our own need, that when we are in doubt, when we don't think that it's worthwhile to extend the ideas behind the Brahmaviharas to others, that maybe it's all right to do it, even though we don't even trust it. A second meditation. A little background to the Brahmaviharas. The Buddha based all of his practical advice upon concepts that he put into effect. And if we go back to probably the one that you've heard a whole lot about, is the Four Noble Truths. And I just emphasize the first noble truth, which is suffering. Suffering comes in all forms, anywhere from the factor that the universe will collapse at one time, to wars, to poverty, but also to individuals in their own lives, the sufferings of attachment, aversion, delusion. And that suffering is there, not for just us, but for everyone. So it's kind of an understanding that it's a universal issue. We all suffer. Coupled with that are several other thoughts behind the Buddha. And I just emphasize one of the other ones, and that is the concept of non-self. That as we see ourselves, we only identify ourselves as being a person, but in reality, there is no real difference between us and the next person. The distance doesn't matter because all of us are existing in an interconnected universe. And so when it comes to expanding the Brahmaviharas, we realize that we are not alone. We can have the ease of offering them to all people because all are suffering. And we can offer them to everyone because there is no difference between you and I. There is no distance. The third meditation, the Buddha said something interesting. And this is where the whole questions of faith comes in, because the Buddha was a very practical person. And he said, and imagine this, don't take my word for it, what I say, because it is only by your own experience that you will know something to be true. So when it comes to practicing the Brahmaviharas, to extending compassion and loving kindness, we can say to ourselves, yes, let's just practice it. Let's see if this works. Let our own experience play into this. A little practical advice for the fourth meditation. There is in the tradition of Buddhism, you always number things. Well, I'm alphabetizing them. And I call these the 4 A's as a means of practicing. The first one is absorption. You hear the words loving kindness, compassion, joy with others, equanimity, and you absorb them. Just sit there with them. The next thing that comes up is assent to, and this brings in the mind, so that the mind is saying, yes, I can see this. Yeah, and this all makes sense. The third thing, aspiration, and this brings in the heart. Not only do I assent to it, but I want to do it. There's something that calls within me to do this. And finally, actualization, the body, expressing it. This is a path, and this is one of the aspects that is coming home to me over and over again, that once we align the mind with the heart, with the hand, then we have achieved something. Anyone separate from the other is not going to do too much good. But once they all come together, then finally we can achieve the peace that we wish. One of the aspects for the fifth meditation is something that is just curious and interesting, but it brings up the factor that, yes, in our normal lives, we are always looking for the negative. And in this sense, within Buddhism, there's a theory that for each one of the Brahmaviharas, there is also a near enemy and a far enemy. Each of the 4 Brahmaviharas has what is called a near enemy and a far enemy. The near enemy is a state of mind that is close to the Brahmavihara and is sometimes mistaken as the good emotion, but is actually a near enemy and not the correct mental state. The far enemy is virtually the opposite of the Brahmavihara and is completely off the mark for the emotion that is strived for. So in the sense, going through the list, for loving kindness, our near enemy is selfish affectation. For the far enemy, painful ill will. For compassion, our near enemy is pity, and the far enemy is cruelty. For joy with others, and this is sometimes my problem of getting too manic, is exuberance. But the far enemy is resentment. And for equanimity, the near enemy is indifference. The far enemy is craving and clinging. Meditation 6, working on the boundaries. This, I think, is one of our greatest problems, because the boundaries of who we should offer these to are usually the most difficult. On one side is the self. And how many times have we realized we haven't offered the same compassion, same joy to ourselves as we have to others? It's a difficult struggle sometimes. On the other border is the idea of how do we do this to the most hated person in the world without losing our sense of self. And on this issue, this is why we practice. Because there are many stages in between the self and the most hated, we build ourselves little by little until that final moment comes when we can finally approach even our enemies and realize that because of our non-self and because of our suffering, that within them might lie something. If you happen to see the comics in the newspaper the other day, in Pearls Behind Swine, I found that there was just kind of an ideal description of this. Mouse and pig are talking, and Mouse says, what do you do when an angry driver aggressively cuts you off? Swear at them, make a rude gesture, cut them off in return? And Pig says, I try to focus on what must be happening in their life to make them so hostile and unhappy. And Mouse says, maybe you're not understanding. And Pig says, no, but I'm trying to. Meditation 7. What is the right time? When isn't the right time is probably the expression that goes much better with this. The factor is, unlike meditation, which many of you think, or perhaps have the idea, sitting on the cushion, being very happy, being very serene. The Brahmaviharas are something that you carry with you because you never know the moment when something is going to come up and you're going to have to practice them at a second's notice. The only time that we really have is not to think, well, I really hope that this all goes well in the future, or it's too bad it happened in the past. But the eternal present moment is where we find the time to practice. So always being vigilant, always being ready. Meditation 8, working with boundlessness. The ideas expressed in the readings today is that all of these items are limitless. We don't know how far they can go. And so we have to look at our world around. Last year, I happened to be living in Minneapolis at the time of the George Floyd things. And living only a couple of blocks from where the rioting was going on. I sat in my room and I said, this is probably a time for extending well wishes to everyone, but it's so big, can I do it? And then I had to ask myself, why not? What is stopping me at this time from doing it? And another example that comes up, the modern age says that the artificial intelligence world does have some experiences on it that we may not want to experience. I've been a part of many Zoom groups, and unfortunately, one of the Zoom groups that I've been on has what is called a Zoom bomber. And we've had it happen 3 times. And I watched myself over the months that we've had this happen. And the first one was, of course, blankety, blankety, blankety people, why are they interfering with my peace and meditation, and, get out of here, and oh my gosh, chaos and everything. And then it happened again just last Sunday. And when I saw that happening, I realized that no, I could still offer them compassion because of the fact that perhaps there was suffering in their lives at the same time, that there was something going on, and that the causes and reasons to go and to express yourself in this way are unknown to me, but that does not stop me from expressing goodwill to them. And then, of course, there's the idea of practicing it when you're going out for a walk and discovered that the neighbor didn't shovel his sidewalk. Meditation 9, and the final one, is the contemplation of these virtues enough? Can just sitting there and thinking of them really produce any effects in our world? And on that, I'd like to say, under everything, we need a platform. As expressed, there's a way of going from mind to heart to action, but it all began someplace. So in establishing this practice, establishing a platform, we eventually get to the point where we can arrive at action in this world. And that practice is what makes us journey on. Without that practice, without the platform, our actions may go awry, because it's so easy, again, the negative bias situation, to say, I'm going to change the world because the world is bad, rather than seeing the world in suffering and in hurt. So with that platform, we journey on. With that, it would be remiss if I didn't offer you the wishes of the 4 Brahmaviharas. So I end with the words of Lama Lekshi. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separate from the highest bliss, which is without suffering. And may they come to rest in the great equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those close and far. Thank you for sharing.
We will now extinguish our chalice with a reading from the Dhammapada, I hope I said that close to right, attributed to the Buddha. This translation can be found in the book Loving Kindness in Plain English by Bhante Gunaratana. All actions are led by the mind. Mind is their master. Mind is their maker. Act or speak with an unwholesome state of mind, and suffering will follow, as the cartwheel follows the steps of an ox. All actions are led by the mind. Mind is their master. Mind is their maker. Act or speak with a pure state of mind, and happiness will follow, as your shadow follows you without departing.
Kamma saka kamma dayada kamma yoni kamma bandhu kamma patisarana yang kammang karisanti kalayanang va papakang va tasadayada bhavisanti.